tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Okay, who here has practiced something like that, some kind of dedication prayer or dedication meditation before? Okay, some number of people. Yeah, it was definitely new for me when I first came to the monastery. But it is a really cool practice. It's a very cool practice, and it's so cool that I think that I will give the whole talk today on it. And for those who want to participate in that coolness, we've printed out about 50 copies of that chant so that you can fold it up and put it in your wallet, or you can put it in your pocket, you can put it on your wall. You can do so many things. It's just a piece of paper. So whatever you do, it's part of Buddhist practice. The word bhavana, which usually gets translated as meditation, just means cultivation. And a big aspect of what we do when we come to a monastery, a big part of our fun at a monastery is chanting, learning the chants and memorizing the chants. And this, for those who want to, we don't have enough of the actual hardbound chanting books to give away, but for those who want, we've got that chant, both in Pali on the front, or English on the front, and Pali on the back. Could you pass these around? Nice. And do feel free to take one or not. I won't watch. So yeah, talking about goodness and what this might mean and how this might work, this sharing of goodness. Again, based on Doug's suggestion years ago, I have started using whiteboards. So this is a list, it actually comes from the commentaries, but a list of 10 bases of merit. 10 bases of merit. And it comes from the commentaries. Originally, there was just 3. So in the oldest strata, what the Buddha was talking about was just 3. And those are the ones which are furthest over to the right. That's generosity, or dana, virtue, or sila, and meditation, cultivation, that's bhavana. But then the commentaries, I think, quite usefully expand the definitions and elaborate and name these other types of goodness, because they really do brighten the heart. And a lot of us, when we come bumbling into a spiritual life, it's not always so intuitive for some of us. For some of us, it is. You just see the light very clearly, and you don't need somebody to name it for you. You know how it feels, and you know, okay, that's good. I see it in myself, and it's beautiful, and I see it in others, and it's beautiful. But for some of us, we need a list, and 3 things just won't do. So we bump it up to 10. So that's a lot of what the commentaries were doing, just elaborating these lists. But before going into some of these specifics, I would like to say a little bit more about my grandma. This is her. It's Saint Francis of Assisi, his body, and then my grandma's face. And I made about 10 of these grandma playing cards for her funeral. She died about 6 years ago, and probably about 16 years ago, she started asking me. She's not Buddhist, but she's a very good Christian. She's a very good Christian, a very good person. These things, she did all of them in spades. She was such a good role model. And 16 years ago, she started asking me. She knew I was becoming Buddhist, something spiritual, doing something spiritual, and she felt like she could open up to me. She said, and she was one of the first family members who is not only cool with calling me Kovilo, but actually liked doing it. I would give her a call, and she would say, Kovilo! And I could just see her face quiver with excitement. And since that time, from very early on, when I first came to the monastery, okay, don't know what a monk is, but maybe they think about and can actually meditate on, can pray about meaningful things in life. And so she asked me around that time, when I die, okay, she's probably in her 80s at that time, 16 years ago, and she said, when I die, Kovilo, and I don't think she told anybody else this, she certainly didn't make any requests of anybody, but she said, when I die, could you read the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi at my funeral? Because that's very important. That's what I've tried to live my life around. And so I did. I memorized it, and then we found these cool Catholics make trading cards, apparently, and you can buy them on Amazon. So, yeah, and then you just print out a little picture of your grandma, and you stick it right on there and laminate it. So, and I'll read the prayer, because it is really beautiful. And I did memorize it before the funeral, and then had it memorized for years afterwards, but it doesn't totally always come so fresh to my mind. But some of the ideas you'll have to kind of translate into a more Buddhist context, but a lot of it is just one-to-one. And certainly all the virtues that are pointed to are they're just virtues, period, whatever spiritual guise or religious context you find them in. So Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy. Grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. So yeah, that's my grandma card, and it's awesome. And I usually keep it inside of this shrine box, which I might open up for you later, but yeah. And I can believe, it is part of a Buddhist framework that this life isn't the end of things. And, Grandma was so good that she's got to, she was doing so much good that it's not hard for me to imagine her being in heaven and still having a relationship with her. And part of what's cool about this practice, which, most people did not raise their hands. When I said, okay, who has a practice of dedication? Most people did not raise your hands, because that's not what most of you were not born into Buddhist families, and most of you didn't come to Buddhism for prayer. Yeah, you go to a meditation retreat, or you pick up some kind of meditation book, and it's mostly meditation first, and for a lot of you, meditation period. It's like you don't want all the rest of the religiosity. Like I don't even know what I think about, future lives, and I don't really care. And but it's interesting to have chants like this or recollections, which just open up the frame a little bit. I have no proof that my grandma's not in heaven, and that the relationship just totally ended right there. And honestly, the way that I relate to this, both of my parents are doctors, a very scientific family growing up, and I have no proof. And part of me, because I don't have absolute proof, I can't fully get my heart around it, but I can at least have the humility to say, I really don't know that it's not true. And for me, it's good, this opening up of my practice, and I would submit to you that opening up your practice and thinking about others, even if it's just thinking, even if you can't get around the psychodynamics of how it might possibly work, that you could dedicate goodness to somebody else. Maybe it could. And certainly I see it, my grandma, she did a lot of good things. She was constantly, anytime I would go to visit her growing up, she would take me to go visit other old ladies. And she was like in her 70s or 80s or 90s, but she's taking me to visit these 60-year-olds or 70-year-olds or 80-year-olds who are in like nursing homes. And she goes there and she reads what's called contemporary news. something like that. It was basically her reading the news to these older people. And it wasn't about the news. It was just, in fact, I think it was like specialty news. I think it was like all of the bad news taken out and like just specialty, easy to digest, pre-chewed news for older people. So she would read that to them, and it was sweet. She'd go there and she'd bring flowers from her garden, and I would help her bring pick the flowers in the garden. And then after she had fed the birds in the yard, and then we'd go there, and then on the way back, we'd stop at Recording for the Blind, which almost certainly doesn't exist anymore, but it's basically like, you go and read a textbook for some blind people. And my grandma didn't have the best voice. I would love to listen to like a 9th grade algebra textbook read by my grandma. It would be hilarious. I don't know if I could learn algebra actually through my grandma. It would be too distracting. But the fact that she would do this, she didn't have to. She was retired for the whole of my life, but she would still do these things. And then pretty much any time we would separate from someone, and certainly when I would go my separate way, she would say, "And Kovilo, I'm praying for you. Kovilo, I'm praying for you." And it was meaningful because she actually did. She took time out of her day to actually think about me. And did I or do I believe in some intercessionary aspect from some deity that she's somehow saving me? I don't. Or I don't even know what I think about that, and it's not actually that important. But that my grandma took the time to think about me, that Ajahn Nisabo takes the time to think about me. And for me it is, even though I've been chanting this chant, have it memorized in Pali and English, having it memorized is different from actually taking it on as a practice. And it's only been somewhat recently that I have conjoined my daily bowing practice with the daily thinking of you practice. And Ajahn Nisabo, he takes a list. He's got a little notebook in his pocket, like I do, and we keep people in mind. Someone on alms round will say, "Oh, my spouse is actually having a hard time." I say, what is their name? And actually taking the time to learn that person's name. My child is actually going through something that's really, really rough. They're going through some kind of addiction, and would you keep them in your prayers? We were going for a walk just around our neighborhood, and some guy pulled up rather frantically and said, "My cousin, Richard Josephson, I believe, just got in a car crash. He was on his bike, and I think he got hit by a car, and he's just in the hospital. I saw you guys, and you look like you're monks or something. Could you keep him in mind?" And we put him on the blessing braid, and he is in our hearts. And it might seem like something very small, and you might even say, what's the big deal? Like, you're not doing anything for anybody. That's like the weakest, most paltry, pappy, way to help the world. But it's not. It is an opening, and that's how metta works. We don't know how metta works, but knowing that Ajahn Nisabo, I don't actually see him that much. We've got our own little huts. I live in a hut that's maybe like, all told, maybe 12 foot by 12 foot. He lives in a little hut that's maybe something similar, and we're about 15 feet away. But I'm doing my thing. I'm meditating and like studying over in my hut. He's doing his thing. I basically just come over to use the restroom. But, okay, I know he thinks about me. He thinks about me from time to time. And similarly, I'm thinking about other people who are in our life, and thinking about you and people who are on our blessing braid. And dedicating one's practice is one of these forms of goodness. So I'll just name these 10 types of goodness, because hopefully when we did that part of the dedication of offering, that first line, through the goodness that arises from my practice, imina punya kamena, through the goodness, the punya, the merit that I've done. Hopefully, and I was trying to guide you through that. It was very easy for you all to think, oh yeah, I do good things. I've got a good job. I'm a healthcare provider, and even though if I've got like a job in tech, and saying nice things to the guys next to me and saying nice things to my family. Hopefully it's very easy. But this is a cool checklist of types of goodness in a Buddhist context. So of the three, we can see that generosity, two sub-virtues from that are dedication of goodness and delighting in others' goodness. So that dedication of goodness is called pati dana. So dana means giving, and pati is like the accumulation of punya. It's like your merit store. And hopefully you all know people who you're like my grandma. Hopefully you've all got my grandmas in your life who are like, oh yeah, that's just a really good person, no matter what religion or non-religion they come from. They just do a lot of good, and it seems like they've got some kind of internal psychological storehouse of all that goodness that they've been doing for their whole life. It's like I can see the halo in their face and dedicating that. That's the pati, P-A-T-T-I, pati. And there's nothing silly about this pati. Thank you. Sometimes I come up with a pun and I just have to say it, or else it gets stuck. Thank you, and apologies. And that delighting in others' goodness, this is pat anumodana. So anumodana, like we say here, anumodana, which means delighting in the pati, the goodness, the accumulated goodness of others. And Ajahn Jeff calls that lazy man's merit. Lazy man's merit. Because you don't have to do anything else. You don't have to do anything by yourself. Somebody does something good and you say, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And that's your delighting in somebody else's goodness. That is merit in and of itself. Next, we have virtue. So refraining in a Buddhist context from killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, intoxicants, and all the other types of sense restraint. All of the ways that you're kind of collecting the mind, not letting the mind just flow out and waste your mind's, your heart's energy. So that's virtue. And then two sub-points from that, we have humility and service. So humility is a beautiful virtue. Humility, just being humble. All those times when you can just become that cracked gong. This is a Dhammapada verse. If, when struck by the unwelcome words of another, you can make the heart like a cracked gong, then you've achieved a nibbana here and now. And this is one of the few occasions, this is Dhammapada verse, where the Buddha uses nibbana not as the highest exalted goal of complete freedom from greed, anger, and delusion, but just the release, the moment of, yeah, my spouse said that triggering thing, which I'm triggered by every single day, and I know it's going to happen, but like a cracked gong, you hit the gong, and it's like this. Yeah, there's not the reverberation. So humility as a virtue. Service, the way that you help your family, friends, people you work with. And then meditation, you have listening to the Dhamma, talking Dhamma, and actually straightening out your views. So these are the 10 types of merit. And the Thai version, where's all our Thai people at today? Oh, bad weather. Oh, I'm sorry. You all are missing out. Thai people are great. You should all find some Thai people and bring them into your life. They're great. But the Thai version of this chant actually has a final line that says, through the power of these 10 virtues, may darkness and delusion be dispelled. And then it has it doesn't say them in the chant, but then it has a little asterisk, which says, and then the footnote gives a list of these 10. So this is what we pay attention to in that first line. Through the goodness that arises from my practice. And then whether you have a little notebook that you write down the important people in your life. How Ajahn Nisabo does this is he says, okay, to my preceptor, Ajahn Anan, to my mother, Sarah Conover, to my father, Doug Robnett Conover, to my homiest homeboy, Kovilo Bhikkhu. He might just say Kovilo, but whatever he says, he includes me in there, and then he goes through his list of people who have brought up their names in the past week, and then he bows. And he might even do it one bow per person. I'm not sure exactly. But for myself, it is more this creative act. And the word bhavana, literally, the word for being is bhuta, from the root bu, to be. And bhavana is the causative of that. So to cause to come into being is meditation or cultivation. What are you causing to come into being? Wholesome qualities. You're undercutting your greed, your anger, and your delusion, and you're cultivating patience and friendliness. So that's what you're bringing into being. That's what cultivation is about. So that's what you bring to mind. And would encourage people to, maybe today, if you took one of those pieces of paper, even taking it as a daily practice, maybe I can take this on for the next week. I'll at least read this thing. When you take on a new habit, this is a practice called the 2-minute rule from the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. Great book. But when you're taking on a new habit, see if you can make it circumscribed. So just 2 minutes, just read the chant, and it's fully free on the internet, page 33. Just go to it, and for the next week, the next month, the next year, okay, that monk up there, he made a good case that maybe this would help me be a little bit less selfish. Maybe this would help me instantiate the love that I say that I feel for other people. And it really is meaningful. I feel it. If I have been, which I do, think of you, particular ones of you, many of you, on a daily basis, if I've done it while I've been doing my bowing in this creative way, and that's the point that I was trying to make. One translation for bhavana could be creativity. And for me, my bowing, my practice of recollecting the good people in my life is a creative act. I'm bowing, and whoever comes up at the time, that's who I share my merit with. That's who I share this goodness, or at least think about. And it's good. Can I take a little bit of time? Can I take less than 2 minutes? It doesn't take 2 minutes to chant this. Take less than 2 minutes to actually expand the scope of my heart and include other people. And if I've thought about you earlier this morning, and I see you today, I see you at the Macrina, or I see you here, it's like, oh yeah, I actually do have a connection with that person. I was thinking about them and their family just this morning. That feels really good to have somebody who can say that to you and actually have some weight to it. Like my grandma, it was meaningful. And it was meaningful. Inside of this box it's a prayer box that I pretty much take everywhere with me. The wood was planed from wood at Abhayagiri, and inside of it are my own kind of best of Buddhist playing cards. So different teachers of mine, including the Dalai Lama. This was a photo of the Dalai Lama that my grandma actually sent me. Could have been 13, 14 years ago. She cut it out from Newsweek, and she actually was thinking about me. And she took the time, I'm going to cut this out and mail it across the world to Thailand, where I was living at the time. And everybody loves the Dalai Lama. Everybody loves the Dalai Lama. So I put it in this little piece of plastic and have carried it around with me ever since. I've got pictures of my teachers and pictures of family in there. And I put it up on my shrine as just a way to think of the people in my life. And hopefully you all have pictures of those you care about. So going through this list, this is a systematic way. I mean, some of you maybe are just inherently creative. You're a 9 out of 10 on the creativity scale, or a 10 out of 10. And you can tap into spontaneity anytime that you want. And if you can do that, then this is just a super fun practice that will just never get old. It's play. It's bringing play to the cushion. It's bringing play to your bowing, to your life. But for those of you who aren't, I'd say I'm about, at one point in my life, I thought I was about an 8.6 on the creativity scale. And now I'm more like a 5.6. But that's okay. I've got other virtues. But having a prompt, having a chant, which is like, okay, here's the syllabus. Here's a list, a point by point, okay, to my spiritual teachers and guides of great virtue. I know who those are in my life, and the list does grow. And then I can go to my mother, my father, and my relatives, and that's fun. And they're nodes, they're points which just expand. Think of my father, then his partner, and then their whole families. And it just keeps the practice alive. It keeps this, a Thai word is namchai, which means the water of the heart. This is something, you're tapping into the well water of the heart, and it keeps practice juicy. To the sun and the moon and all virtuous leaders of the world. So this chant, sometimes people are like, where is this from? At least half of this book probably goes back to the time of the Buddha. But some of them go back much more recently. So I believe this chant, for a while, I thought it was composed by the fourth king of Thailand, who was the subject of The King and I, that musical. Before he became a king, he was a monk for 20 years, and he led like super reformation in the Thai Sangha. So he did create the modern Thai chanting book as you find it all over Thailand. So this chant is in that book, but it goes further back than that. And how far? As far as I can tell, it goes back to something called the Yoga Vachara, which was the first meditation manual translated into English by Rhys Davids of the Polytech Society in 1896. In 1896, the first meditation manual, and he titled it The Manual of a Mystic. And apparently it goes back, it was found in a library in Sri Lanka by Anagarika Munindra, and apparently goes back to 15th or 16th century, at least Sri Lanka, but perhaps Thailand. So this is not all the word of the Buddha. So you see some things like my mother, my father, and my relatives, that's all. There's so much canonical basis for dedicating merit and thinking of one's parents. But the sun and the moon, this is something as like a kind of nitpicky, modern, intellectual Buddhist, like I very much was when I first came to the monastery. I'm like, there's no sun and moon worship in Buddhism. You lion chanting book. But at least it's poetic, and it does have, can you hold the poetry of it? If you can't see the immediate beauty of it, what could that mean? Can I dedicate the goodness to the sun and the moon? What would that even mean to nature? At least a recollection of gratitude. The Pali word for gratitude is katanyu, which is literally knowing that which has been done. Or a better translation might be appreciation, appreciating that which has been done for us. And it's a wise virtue. And so we continue with that list. Sun and the moon, all virtuous leaders of the world, highest gods, evil forces, celestial beings, all this pantheon of Buddhist cosmos. Those who are friendly, indifferent, or hostile, may they all receive the blessings of my life. And then through the goodness that arises from my practice and through this act of sharing, may all desires and attachments quickly cease. So we go from recollection of our own virtues, silanusati, to thinking about others, this metta practice, to finally this dedication, this adhitthana, this dedication to our own spiritual upliftment. And this whole practice, I think the best analogy, if you still can't get around I don't understand the spiritual psychodynamics of how this might work, but the best analogy for it is like book dedication. So this book right here, this is Stillness Flowing, the authoritative biography of Ajahn Chah, and it's a big book. And if you go to the dedication, you'll see this book is not for sale. It's not what I was looking for. Come on. Acknowledgements. My thanks in particular to my editors, Venerable Kovilo, Venerable Munisara, Jan Davies, and Joe DeLeo. So there were four of us. We were the fourfold Sangha. You had a monk, which is Kovilo, a bhikkhuni, which was Venerable Munisara, a laywoman who is Jan, and a layman who is Joe. And anytime I see this book, I think, oh yeah, he dedicated it to me. To little old Kovilo, to your Kovilo. He did something good. He did something good in his life. And if you've ever had a book dedicated to you, it just feels good. And I remember it was like a year and a half of my life. I was doing, this was like 8 hours a day, 6 days a week for about 10 months that I was going through every single page of this book. And it feels good. If you, I'm sure, Ajahn Jayasaro just has so much goodness to recollect with that book, but that he would dedicate it to me and all the other people. It was a great team that we had. But just think about that. Maybe it does transfer. And I will tell you, it does. It does. If you think about somebody and then you see them, you've been nurturing a relationship of kindness and thoughtfulness even before you've been priming your heart to care. And if care comes easy for you, then here's another tool. But if it doesn't, here's an especially good, skillful means to bring more care into your life. So just encourage everybody. See if you can. Okay, if that monk made an okay enough case for it, then take one of those little things and say, okay, I'll chant this for the next week. Or at least later today, I'm going to dedicate the goodness of my life to so-and-so. Just one dedication. Start with one. Start with one. Okay, in the talk there.
Handamayam dhamma kitaya sadhu karam dadamase sadhu 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 anumodami.
Okay, if anybody has any questions or thoughts, both in person, Ryan can bring a mic around to you, or if you're on Zoom, feel free to raise your hand there. Yeah, please, Hasa.
I figure now would be an appropriate time to share a practice that I've taken on for the last maybe 6 months. I am sometimes at the end of my day, I will write a word down on a sticky note of a quality that I saw in myself during some point in the day, some action, and I stick it on my mirror. And I have a bedroom mirror covered in sticky notes that say things like patient, warm, mindful. And I just thought that it would be nice to share that practice because it's been really lovely.
That is really lovely. And others, feel free to share. Thank you so much, Hasa. That's beautiful. And others, feel free to share creative sharing of aspiration practices as well, sharing of goodness.
So that prayer to St. Francis is the only artifact from Catholicism that I've kept. And I find it so inspiring. It's really beautiful. And when you let us, I have done a guided meditation about sila before, but when you used this particular structure of this beautiful chant, it was a totally different experience for me, and I'm really grateful. And I thought about all the times when I've struggled to calm the mind, even in a jhana retreat or something, and thinking about that proximate cause of joy being, an important step to gathering the mind. And it was as if this guidance through this beautiful chant was that piece. Like, I could start with that. So really, really lovely. And it also reminded me of something Joseph Goldstein said that cracked me up. Early in his practice, he went in with Sayadaw U Pandita for an interview, and he was, ruminating on something, and U Pandita said, "Joseph, just reflect on your sila." And he said, "What did I do wrong?" So, he's come a long way, and I feel like, we're all coming a long way with that, so thank you.
Mary, thank you very much. And it does remind me, when I first ordained, me and one of my monk brothers would meet up multiple times through the day to try to encourage ourselves to practice, having an accountability buddy. We'd say, okay, for the next 5 hours, I'm going to meditate this long, I'm going to chant this much, I'm going to do this thing. And after a while, he came to the realization that it was still just dry. He would do all those things and he would still, that the waters of the heart weren't there. And so he took to dedicating his practice. He's like, okay, I'm going to do these things and I'm going to do it with a dedication to my family. I'm going to meditate for my mother. I'm going to do this chant for my father. And that just had a huge effect on his practice. And thank you for that memory. Yeah, Scott, please.
Thank you for that meditation. That was one of the more moving ones for myself, and I think for other people too. I heard some people sniffing around me afterwards. I think it was tears of joy, or else they have pollen problems. But I just want to thank you for that. Really, I would like to do that again, and I was hoping that for this particular Saturday morning session, if they could also include that in the YouTube video they put online, because usually they cut that part out. They just start from the Dharma talk. But it's really nice to be able to try this one again and have that guidance.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. That's a good idea. I'll talk with Cheryl and Coda about that. We can do that. If not now, then later. Yeah, I can do that. And just one other way to dedicate. One, in addition to other ways to support Clear Mountain, one thing that we do on our website, we've got something called Recitations of Refuge. And there's a good number of people who will chant the Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, Dhammang Saranang Gacchami, Sanghang Saranang Gacchami. I go to refuge to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. And we'll do that a certain number of times every day. If you've got one of those malas, you can count that as 108 times. And some people will do that every day. And then on the website, there's a way you can put that into, I think it's like a Google form, just however many times you've done it, and then dedicate that goodness. Okay, I did that refuge chant 108 times. Myself, I do it 108 times, at least every day. And then we'll submit that to the form. And we've got a clock, we've got a counter. And so for some random, arbitrary, somewhat number, we chose 5 million recitations of refuge, and we're up to 3.9 million group recitations of refuge. So if you want to find a way to tap into Clear Mountain, consider doing that refuge chant and dedicating it to the flourishing of Clear Mountain, just on the website. Jyoti, please.
Yeah, it was a beautiful practice, similar to what you were saying about the old Joseph Goldstein reaction to those sort of specific contemplations. I find that for myself as well. I do all of the other steps, but when I try to recollect the specifics of my own goodness, it's like ego itching powder, and when I go through the list, I don't know, my virtue is pretty good, but if I try to contemplate the specifics, that inner voice starts, you're not generous enough, and you're not, and you blah, 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 blah. And I just instantly go, oh, what do you know? And I just skip right to metta. And I don't know if I'm like bypassing work that I should maybe be doing, but when I'm doing metta practice, that voice is 100% gone. And I work with my spiritual teachers. That's so beautiful. I do that all the time. But I can't do the specifics without it being, and I don't believe the voice, but it's really instantaneously present. So I just skip it. And I don't know, like, during this practice, I was like, oh, can metta become like an avoidant, like, I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, thank you very much. It does seem like it's a skillful means for you. It's just, okay, sidestep that for whatever reason it's bringing stuff up, and sidestep to metta, and then it just dissolves. That's beautiful, and I think that's not at all uncommon. I think that's actually how it was for my grandma. She didn't like, there's like some kind of, I think the Christianity she was raised with did like really taboo thinking of your own goodness as like a mark of pride. But I would also, to the extent that you can gently lean into it, I think it's a very good habit to create. Ajahn Jayasaro does recommend you having a very clear list, even written down, of the 10 kind of best things that you've done in your life, and recollecting those on a very regular basis, and even practicing them daily. Because when we're on our deathbeds, you don't want that voice which doesn't see any goodness in our lives to be what comes to the fore. You want the voice which says, oh yeah, I did do that really cool thing, and I did help that person, and I did make that offering, and I did, edit this book. That's on my short list for sure. And this book as well, yeah. So yeah, maybe experimenting, leaning into it a little bit, because you do have so much goodness, obviously. And or maybe you could ask Gavin for him to do it. You could do it for each other. You say all the goodness of him, or just every day before you go to bed, just one goodness of the other. Yeah. Please.
Thank you so much for that, meditation and the talk. And I guess I'm coming at it from a little bit of a skeptic view, which is that if I'm having good thoughts about somebody, I'm not sure if it's actually affecting that person. It helps me. And so I've heard about having resentment towards somebody, and the teaching is generally, if you have resentment towards somebody, you're not affecting that person, you're only hurting yourself. And so to me, it seems like what helps the person is if I let them know that I am thinking about them, not just thinking about them.
Thank you for saying that. I can sympathize a lot. How this whole talk came about was last Sunday. I was talking with my dad. He's a psychiatrist. He's very skeptical, but also somewhat open. And he asked me point blankly, is there intercessionary prayer in Buddhism? And it's just such a nuanced answer. You're certainly not the intercession of a Buddha. That's not, Theravada Buddhism isn't about asking the Buddha to give blessings to us or anybody else. Or even like intercession of saints, asking someone else to give us their merit or something. In fact, that's why there are several ways to translate this practice. One of them is transferring merit, or sharing merit, or dedicating merit. And I think dedicating and sharing is better than transferring, because it's not like this esoteric economy of tit for tat. I do these good things, and then it makes up for all those bad things I did, or that saint can intercede on my behalf. But yeah, I'm very sympathetic. I don't know how it might work. Tomorrow is his birthday, and I sent him a card. One of the ways that I'm trying to convert him to Buddhism is I draw these cartoons, which he really likes, and it's called Monk and Dad. And so his birthday is tomorrow, and so I sent him a card, and I didn't have as much time as usual to draw it out, but we have him He's his, psychiatrist face with his glasses and his parted hair, and I'm this monk over here. And he asks, "Hey, Kovi," he calls me Kovi. "Hey, Kovi, is there such a thing as intercessionary prayer in Buddhism?" And I say, "Dad, if there is, I'm going to intercede the hell out of you." ... But if there's not, you better keep doing a lot of good stuff, like your head was on fire. So kind of, frightening him a little bit, and, But yeah, through humor, and again, this is something nobody else can prove for you. And I think how you're holding it, especially telling them, and maybe take that on as a practice. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Tim. Bonnie. Maybe we can go Bonnie and then Suze and then...
Just a really quick recollection of something I read online. It was an old woman, and her grandchild noticed that she put lotion on her arms every day. And she asked her grandmother, "Why do you do that?" And she said, "When I put the lotion on, I reflect of the good my arms have done." And I found that absolutely beautiful. So every time I put lotion on my arms or on my hands, I think of the good my hands have done. What they've made, the babies they've held, just the good work that comes from what your body does. And I just found that absolutely beautiful in focusing on the goodness that your body produces.
So nice. If anybody is inspired to buy a bunch of baby-sized lotions and bring them to Clear Mountain to give away so everybody can rub the goodness into their arms, that would be great. Yeah. Suze, thank you so much, Bonnie.
You use the phrase expanding the scope of your heart, and I wanted to share this experience. So last night I turned on the news, and there was the picture of a person driving their truck into the synagogue in West Bloomfield, Michigan, which is my brother's temple, and I've been there. And nobody was hurt, and I then called my brother and sister-in-law, and then this morning I read in the paper about the man who had driven his truck into the temple. And he was Lebanese, he was a U.S. citizen, and 4 or 5 of his members of his family had just been killed by a bomb from Israel. And I was sitting there, and I don't remember his name right now. I'm going to go back and remember it, but I sent him blessings for this transition. He is now dead, and the pain that he was feeling. And it was a different kind of response, and I really felt the expansion of the scope of my heart. So this practice is working.
Thank you, Suze. Yeah, and there is a lot going on in the world right now, and praying, sending metta, sharing goodness, opening the heart, expanding the heart in all these ways. If you do read the news, expanding it that much and more. I would actually, if you are going to watch the news, please do practice this afterwards, because there's so many prayers that need having. So maybe go to Joseph.
Thank you, Venerable. I just wanted to check in a view I have and get some feedback. So when I hear the idea of interceding prayer, if I said that correctly, sorry if I said the wrong term. The way I understand it in a Buddhist framework is we help ourselves when we are keep our virtue, and we're generous, and we engage in meditation. And we help others when we encourage, approve, and praise those behaviors in others. So an interceding prayer in a Buddhist context would be like telling all the angels, may you give gifts with confidence, May you guard your virtue always, and may you engage in meditation. And so when we're asking you for a blessing, right? Say you're the monk and we request you to give a blessing to the audience. You are spreading goodwill, and so we're encouraging you to be kind. And so we're witnessing you being kind. And so there is some actual kind of scientific research that shows that the receiver, the giver, and the witness of an act of kindness all gain an increase in health and happiness. So there is tangible, actual proof, and blessing is not a magical word. It's encouraging, approving, and praising kindness. So I would like to intercede on behalf of the entire Clear Mountain community. Please give gifts with confidence, guard your virtue always, and engage in meditation. And may you be healthy and happy along with all your relatives.
Nice. Thank you, Joseph. Well, let's keep opening our hearts up. Something we do, we mentioned it a little bit, but that blessing braid on our website, it's just an ongoing list of people who've either requested blessings or requested that we as a community keep certain people in mind. So you can go and add people there. You can tell Ajahn Nisabo and I, and we can add their names. And I think we've got quite a list today. So just as Cheryl reads these out, see if you can tap into that place of, okay, maybe I don't know this person, but is there any way that I can open my heart to them and share any goodness that I've done today?